Hi, my name is Summer and I'm the responsible sibling. I gave myself that name because of the role that I kind of ended up in, and I wasn't quite prepared for. So, as context, in 2019, my father passed away at the age of 69, and in 2024, 5 years later, my mom passed away at the age of 68. So, as you can imagine, I was not really prepared for that. In this process, my mom had me, my dad had my brother, and they got married. They didn't have any children together. So, my brother and I are stepbrother and stepsister. What makes our situation unique is that my brother is also autistic. So, when I say I became the responsible sibling, I became responsible for my parents' affairs and making sure that my brother and I were able to split them legally down the middle. It seemed easy. Did my parents have a will? Yes. My father had a will. My mother had a will. I had copies of the wills. So I felt like I was in a good position to just execute what was in the will and keep going. I had read it before, but of course, it wasn't completely clear to me what exactly it was asking me to do. One of the things in particular that kind of made me feel uncomfortable, but I was just hoping that once I got an attorney to help me walk me through these things, they would be able to explain the part about the trust. Since my brother is autistic, he cannot just inherit assets in his name. I actually need to put them in a trust. The trust was listed in both wills. I wasn't really worried about it. I was just like, okay, once I get a lawyer, they'll be able to walk me through, explain everything. So if you see me looking down, I am going to be looking at my notes because I had to take some notes to make sure you guys understood what the full picture of this situation is. This is my story of my legal purgatory as it relates to special needs trust. Welcome. Welcome. Um, so, first of all, let's give some background. So, we're going to talk about what a trust is, what a special needs trust is, what I had, and what were the problems, and where I stand right now with everything that's going on. I think that's a good outline of everything that's happening to kind of give you an idea. I do this out of like advocacy and education. And my heart goes out to anyone that has ever been in this situation. When I got in the situation, I started calling and reaching out to people and reading stories about people who had, been in this role before. No two stories were the same. And the stories were wild. The twists, the turns, completely wild. So I really felt alone because it was no one who kind of had my exact story and they couldn't kind of give insight, or everybody was still going through their things. So I was like, okay, so let me buckle down and get into this. So I had to start educating myself. I started making notes. I just started educating and learning. And people would say, friends, families, coworkers would be like, "Oh, when I get to that point, I'm going to call you. Oh, can I call you? Can I hire you to help me?" And I'm like, I'm not an attorney. I literally am learning as I'm going. But I started to realize that like there are a bunch of me's out there. And even when I started, I like went straight to YouTube, Googling YouTube, and it was so much information. It was so overwhelming, and it very little fit what I was looking for. So, all of that to say, let's talk today about special needs trust because that is where I am in my journey. And so, the way the wheels are set up, so let's just, frame everything. The way the wheels are set up right now, my father has a will, my mother has a will. They both have a section in their wills that says that my brother's portion that he will inherit will go into a trust for him. That is generally the gist. Now, this is legal documentation, so it kind of needs to be exact. And in this case, my dad's will and my mom's will, when it comes to the trust, is not exactly the same. So legally, these are two different trusts. Even though it's for the same person and they had the same intent in mind, they did not have the same exact language, or the legal meaning wasn't the same. So that was the first thing that my attorney brought to my attention. I don't know about this, and I was like, okay. The second thing is that my dad's language, he called it a spendthrift trust. That's a type of trust, but it's the wrong type for this situation. My mother did not have a type in her will. In my mother's will, she had a name. She actually named the trust, like first, middle, last name trust, right? My dad did not actually give it a name. Again, those are the differences as we were reading through and we started to see that this was going to cause an issue. So you might say, "Oh, okay, well, maybe is it that big of a deal?" Maintaining a trust can be expensive. Also, I don't want to have to go into multiple places to access funds to, give to my brother if he needs any type of funding. He wants to buy something, we want to take a trip. I don't want to have to keep up with all these different trust or accounts. So, the other thing that was just shocking to me, you may be asking, so did two different law firms create these wills? No, it's the same law firm. However, the father who started the law firm created my father's trust. The son of that founder created my mother's trust. And they clearly did not reference the two trusts to make sure they were the same. Let's talk about what a trust is, and then we'll break it down into special needs trust. So a trust is basically like a bucket, and you can put things into this trust, and it's almost like an invisible cloak. When you put things into the trust, no one else can see that. It is not public knowledge, and all it says is Jane Doe has a trust, right? You don't know, and depending on what you name it, you can name it ABC Company has a trust. You don't know who it is, you don't know what's in it, which is always a good thing. The parts of the trust are as such. You have the grantor, which is the person who creates the trust. Then you have the trustee, which is the person who's going to manage the trust. And then you have the beneficiary, which is the person who received the proceeds of the trust. So in this situation, my parents are the grantor. They're creating these trusts. I am going to be the trustee. I'm going to manage the trust. And the beneficiary is my brother. He will be the recipient of the funds that go into the bucket that is cloaked in the invisible cloak, right? So no one knows what's in it but he and I, and it's all his, right? So his portion of his inheritance will go in there. Mine will go wherever I want them to go, if that makes any sense. So that is what a trust generally is. Now let's go into a special needs trust. My legal purgatory. So my dad, as I mentioned, had this something called a spendthrift trust. That's more like, hey, I think if I give you all these assets at one time, you may spend it all, you may lose it, you may gamble it away. So let me put parameters in place so that you only can get so much at certain times. That's more of a spendthrift trust. It's not the exact definition, but that's closer to what a spendthrift trust is. We don't want that. That's not necessarily our goal. In this situation, my brother lives in a group home. He receives Medicaid services from the state, services from the government. Well, when you do that, anything that you own over $2,000, Medicaid has a right to ask for it, to claim it. And they can say, you have enough assets that we don't need to cover you anymore. We're going to kick you off. And you have to pay everything for yourself. We don't want that. We want this to be an emergency funding things. My parents are gone, so how will my brother get new shoes, or he needs a new TV or something? How are we going to get that? That's what these funds are for. It's for him. It's for his benefit. And so we want to create a trust for him. He is special needs, so that's where you get the title from. There are a couple different types. There's a first party where he funds it himself. That's clearly not what we want here. That's not what's happening. And if we do it that way, it's still, Medicaid can still claim what's in there. They can still see it. They can still have access to it. We really want the third party special needs trust. And that's when it is funded or set up or created by someone else, which this is the situation. It is being funded or created by my parents. We just didn't put the language in the will. And you would think you could just say, hey, court, can we just flip this around? No, because these are legal documents that have been notarized, they have been filed. There was a long time ago No one has looked at them. No one has brought this up ahead of time before my parents passed away. So this is my PSA. Pull out your documents, review it. My favorite tip or trick is to ask an attorney to draw it out, not explain it to you. Draw it out. Percentages, who gets what and where does it go. I think that is the best advice I could give someone at this point, especially if it's hard for you to retain what the meanings are. Having a picture is a whole lot easier. So we're at this point where we know what we want. We want a third party special needs trust. We know what the problem is with the language, and we know who all the people are that we want to play. So my attorney and I are working through a plan to bring to the court to ask, basically, can we do this? One of those things that we're going to need is like historical information, medical information, and background on my brother, so that we can show the court that this is indeed a valid request because he has special needs. As I mentioned before, he's my stepbrother, so we need to bring in his mother because she's going to have a lot of that information. This ended up bringing up a nice caveat because when she passes away, where does her stuff go for him? My attorney said, hey, you don't want her to create another trust. You want her to put everything into this trust. So now it's a family affair because now she had to come in. She needed to talk to my attorney. She let's add another twist. She's retired military. So the military drew up her documentation and they use their own type of language. So now she has to take her documents. We have to talk to my attorney, make sure that everything is in alignment so that from now on, if we can get this approved by the court, that even her documentation aligns, that anything she wants to leave to my brother, that it goes into the same bucket with the invisible cloak. So that is where we are right now. I've been frustrated. I've cried. I've been angry. Just not at my parents, but like at the lawyers and the law firms who, didn't bring this up or explain it. Angry at myself that I didn't discover this earlier. You don't know what you don't know, but it has definitely been a learning experience. And now with so many more kids being diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, I think it's even more important that our generation and everyone under us start to learn this language, this lingo, and start to consider these things as we have children, as we become older, as we have retirement plans and stocks and homes, that you start to consider, how do you plan this out in the future? So we do not have a solution yet. We've been working on this for almost 2 years, but I feel very positive that if we can build a strong enough case, that this will work out. And so I will keep you posted, and I hope that this was helpful. Your vocabulary words: special needs trust, first party, third party, a trust in the parts, the grantor, the trustee, the beneficiary, a will, and you cannot do this without an attorney. You would rather that your documentation, your will, is as clean as possible so that on the back end, like where I am now, you will not be spending a lot of money with an attorney to get things straightened out. So I hope this was helpful, and I will continue to keep you guys updated.